so beautiful. Getting ready to launch here in Havre de Grace, and I got some good intel out in the middle of the Susquehanna Flats. A buddy of mine who works for Maryland DNR gave me some geographical coordinates, and I got them put into the chart here. I'm going to show real quickly how you go about doing that with the Lowrance unit here. I got the pages here, and just kind of went over to, let's see, waypoints, routes, and trails, and dropped down to find, and scroll down here to coordinates, and then just put your info here. Now, with the format that my buddy gave me the coordinates, I had to convert it, and just online I found a geographical coordinate converter. You know, they're in this setup, they're set in decimals of minutes. What he gave me was minutes and seconds, and you know, just went on there, plugged in the format that he gave me, and went ahead and put them in here. But I've already got them marked, so I'll go ahead and get out there and find a way to steer my way to those spots. So it's low tide right now, which is a good thing, because my buddy that told me about this spot, that gave me the coordinates, said that it's out in the middle of the flats, and it's an area that has a lot of 2 and 3 foot deep water right around it, but the channel itself goes to like 8 or 9, and it's just loaded with fish. So it's a good thing that it's low, because it's going to be draining all the water out of the flats right now. Now I've got the motor going, so nice thing about that is in this, I don't know, it's about 2 3/4 mile ride out to the spots. I can cast as I go. Put the Torqeedo at a very low setting and just keep chucking, and really at the same time scanning the surface for any bird activity or anything that might indicate a group of stripers out here eating. All right, I've reached the point where the motor's of no more use to me. We got a lot of grass here, and the motor is just bogging down in this stuff, so I definitely got to pull it up, and it kind of explains why this spot was a good one that my buddy pointed out to me. Hey, you got to go out and check this out. There's a lot of bass boats out here, and they're fishing the edge of this huge grass flat, and they can't get any further into it without bogging down like I just did with my motor. So I'm pulling my transducer up, I'm pulling the motor up, and I gotta slog through this to get to it. So it must be good. Alright, I've arrived at the first waypoint, and basically he gave me 3 different spots, and they all connect in a line, connect the dots. It's a channel that drains the central portion of the Susquehanna Flats, and it went from just sloppy muck that couldn't have been more than, I don't know, 2.5 feet for most of it to about 7 feet here, and I think I'm at the upper end, and he says that it gets as deep as 9-10 feet somewhere out here. I did see a little bit of surface activity a little further south of here. So I found the most southerly point in the series of coordinates that my buddy gave me, and it seems like the further south you get on this delta, the more it widens out, the less defined it is as an actual channel. I was getting slashes on a soft plastic jerkbait here right on the surface, but I wasn't connecting, so I switched to this Super Spook, this bait right here with 3 trebles in hopes that, you know, if they slash at it, they're gonna stick to it a little bit better. All right, got one. Switch to the jig, which is how I know how to catch these fish. Did well this summer on the Bay Bridge jigging, and let's see what we got. Might be a striper. Yeah, that's a striper. Nice. All right, I was getting marks on the bottom. I was seeing fish here and there, but thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot. Sweet. Here's a nice one. Hot fishing. Hi. Okay, you're coming aboard. Look at you. Okay, jigging on the flats. Hi there, good morning. Oh yes, what a beautiful fish. Let's see how long he is. He is 23, it looks like. Yeah, 23 and a half. Not too shabby. All right, that one ran right at me from a long way out. Oh, hey there. Yeah, that's a striper. Hey there. Hey, what's up? Good morning. Good morning to you. All right. Jigging the flat. Right on the channel edge. Ooh, let's see what you are. Alright. Nice little 18.5 incher. Alright. Good day. Thanks for the spot, Mike. So these are the 3 waypoints that that my buddy gave me. Here, 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 and they're in a line, and that's the channel. And I'm currently drifting back with the wind from this southerly one back up towards the middle one. And here and there I'm marking fish. These aren't very big, but I've marked some bigger ones right here on bottom. My friend that gave me the coordinates for this channel works for Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and he's their expert on subaquatic vegetation, which is probably the deciding factor why this particular river delta of the Susquehanna River is such a vibrant one in terms of, you know, the amount of fish and, you know, life that's out here. He made a he wrote with some other folks, but he did a lot of the photography for and wrote a subaquatic vegetation field guide. It's a really nice book. It's waterproof, and it's a good way to kind of familiarize yourself with the different types of vegetation that are out here. And it certainly gives you a little bit of insight in terms of, you know what good habitat there is, and you know what you're looking at, and you know what's likely to come back from one year to the next. That is sort of the deciding factor. Is the grass healthy? Does it come back from one year to the next? And the Susquehanna Flats has some nice grass beds out here, and these striper up in here eating what's grown here this summer. Now, before today, I had never used coordinates like this to find a spot. I always went out, found the spot, and dropped waypoints on it. So this was a new skill set for me today, plugging them into the chart and going and finding them. You know, these were ones that someone was really nice to give me, that they had found through their, you know, long hours on the water, and that's not going to happen very often. However, there are coordinates available to anybody for things like artificial reefs that have been sunk out in the Chesapeake Bay. So if you look those coordinates up, plug them into your unit, and go out and find them, it's a good skill set to try out, because it'll certainly lead you to better fishing than just going out and straining water until you stumble upon some. The wind has picked up here, and it makes it harder to feel the jig as it's falling, and that's when it gets bit. The jigging rod I'm using today is a St. Croix Legend Inshore. It's a 7-foot medium heavy. Even with that and the braid that I'm using to help me really feel the bites, I'm still shortening up my cast. I'm not launching it way out there. It's just something with less line out there. When this wind and the current that's coming with it kind of muddles your feel of the bottom. So shorter cast is a big help in terms of feeling the bite. All right, this is interesting. With the wind changing direction, I had to flip to the other side of the channel. I was fishing the far side, but I came over this way just because, hi there. Let me see if I can illustrate. Say, here's the flat, and then the channel dips down, and then it goes flat, and then it comes back up. And I had been catching them I'd been getting bites on this side, but the wind direction came in from this way, it changed and came across this way, and that creates a feeding trough. And basically I paddled over till I started seeing fish on the depth finder here, and as soon as I did that, I stopped and I dropped a jig up and down a couple times. Fish on. The other nice thing about coming over and actually waiting until you see fish on the depth finder on the drop off is that you're taking your jig and you're dropping it right down on them. You got to be quiet. You can't bang your boat, because you're seriously 8 feet away, 7 feet away from these fish. They're right below you. But you're, even with this real big chop in the water, you're gonna feel that bite because it's right there. It's right next to you. It's kind of cool. Oh, come on. There's his brother. I missed him. He had it in his mouth. That one's a little better. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Had to come back up onto that flat and just drift off of it a little bit. This is at least as big as the first one. Mid-20s. Yep. On the jig. They weren't hitting top water, so we went to the jig today, and the jig did the trick. Yes! Ha ha! On the edges of the creek channel. Oh, that's a good one. Hello, Mr. Striper. On the edge, I was on the far edge this morning with the top water. They were smacking it. Yeah, he's about like the other one. Nah, 24 and a half. On the far edge of the channel this morning with the tide coming out, they were tucked up underneath that little drop off from all that water evacuating the flat. And then here midday with the wind coming up the other side of the channel, with the wind coming out of the west, southwest, coming up at me, I moved to the other side of the channel. It's the same thing. Whichever direction the current is flowing, they're going to face into it on a drop off. Pretty simple. They are so beautiful. That's one of them right there. You just drift until you see them. As soon as you see them, pick it up and drop it. I want to see a few more than that though. Okay, here we go. There's a couple of them. Notice which way I'm drifting. I'm drifting to the left. Drop that right where I just was. Put this down. See if I get them. I'm still seeing more on there. Yeah, there's another. Another one in there. He's got friends. I know. He's got friends. I'm still seeing him right on the edge of the channel. I think the wind actually helps. The wind is getting them stirred up. They're looking to eat. It's giving them an opportunity to ambush. It's pushing their food around. And on those drop-offs, it's delivering it right to them. So in the morning, I was catching fish on one end of the channel. This was probably, well, it ranged from 6.5 to 12 foot deep channel going through the middle of this tidal flat on this delta up at the top of the Chesapeake Bay. And in the morning, it was just the last little bit of the outgoing tide, and I was getting hits on topwater up here, but then I started jigging on this side, on this little drop off from like 3-4 feet down to like 7. And if I was jigging this edge, I actually got topwater hits, but I wasn't connecting. I started jigging this edge where all the water is evacuating out there, and these fish are looking uphill. They're looking up. And all the food particles, anything that could flush out of this tidal flat into this channel, they were looking up there in that position. Now, early afternoons, everything changed. It got all the way low, and I think the tide stopped moving and might have just started to come back in. So this feeding, situation was no longer a factor. And I think they scattered for a while. But where I really started picking up fish, I think they moved from this side of the channel to the other. A prefrontal wind picked up hard. I got a lot of wind, and it was coming from this direction. So I stopped fishing this side of the channel, flipped over to this side, and all these fish were stacked up right in here doing the same thing, looking uphill at, particles of food, anything being blown off of this side of the tidal flat. They're looking uphill, and they're coming up and they're smashing it. So being observant of what currents you have going on, regardless of whether they're caused by the tidal influence flushing out the tidal flat or wind influence coming across, they're in the same kind of spot. They're looking uphill. They're looking for food to be flushed right to them. So it was just different reasons, but the same conditions on opposite side of the channel.